Alright, Daisuke, we've got to talk. How long have we been talking about DLC characters now? A year and a half? 2 years nearly? I've had very simple requests since the game came out, and you've given me one of the characters that I asked for. Only one. Like, Viking was literally a freebie, bro. Everyone was asking for her. Not just that, but you've somehow managed to tease each character that I asked for in consistent updates, and yet none of them have actually been added to the game. Do you think this is funny? Do you get a kick out of this? I stayed up until 4 a.m. for this announcement, so you better have something good for me. I've basically lost an entire day waiting for this announcement, so it better be something that I asked for several times over the course of 2 full years. Come on, Daisuke, don't disappoint me. You've gotta be kidding me. I don't know what to do, man. I don't get it. I've remained loyal. I've stuck with the game through thick and thin, and yet I just keep getting these characters that no one asks for. Like, who was sat there going, oh man, I really want Bedman to come back. Bedman is so cool. Like, no, bro, no one cared. None of you cared until the child was added. Well, hey, this might be a sin situation. It might actually be that Arxis has just done the Arxis thing, where they have terribly advertised a character, and it turns out that they're actually sick as hell, and all of my complaining will backfire on me in a hilarious way. Okay, let's talk about Bedman. Alrighty then. Bedman. Bedman? Bedman? Sleep? Bedman is the kind of name that's going to make this script really hard to read. For the character, though, it is a sentient bed that has been programmed to protect this small child that managed to wander into a bunch of different places. Hello, I'm on a field trip to see the president. Foreigner detective! The bed was the same bed that is used by Bedman before Robokai absolutely nuked his ass. Yes, Bedman died to fucking Robokai, and there's no weird arguments or things around it that make it so that he could have died by a different thing instead of it, you know, being Robokai doing a Majin Vegeta. No, it was definitely Robokai and nothing else. This is the character that people were asking for, somebody who died to fucking Robokai. Robokai! There is actually a little bit of ambiguity with this actual bed, as it is officially stated that the bed is simply programmed to protect Delilah, that's the child. However, the bed does show some signs of being sentient instead of just a machine performing its function. And Delilah even interacts with the bed in unique ways, so it could be that the bed is actually just a program that's very well made, or it's actually sentient, or it's part of Bedman's soul controlling the bed. It's Guilty Gear, dude. It could be anything. We all know these characters are very bad at staying dead. I will say, though, I absolutely love the way that the bed is designed in this game. In Xrd, it was clean and well maintained. Its design was definitely funky, but there was a lot of thought put into how the machine would operate, with nice touches like the blocking animation being them literally covering Bedman so he doesn't get hurt. But now, since Bedman is dead, the machine isn't as well maintained and is mostly destroyed. It now twitches and freaks out. One of its arms doesn't work, so it has to drag it over its head to use it. There's a bunch of missing pieces from the machine. The once pristine crown has now been switched out for a murky black mimic of itself. It looks great, though I would appreciate if Delilah wasn't on the screen at all times. This is a pretty contentious issue, but I personally hate the fact that Delilah is just kind of there all the time. She doesn't actually add anything to Bedman's kit, so most of the time she ends up just being in the way of their model and cluttering up the animations. It's not a major issue, as most of the time I just straight up forget that she's there while playing, but when I'm looking for specific animations and I have to mentally remember, look past the child, it messes with me. It's still early days though, and it might turn out that Delilah's actually more of a tell for certain attacks than the bed itself. And I have to say, it might just be because I've gotten used to focusing on my opponent too much, but this bed can be pretty hard to read visually sometimes. It's constantly morphing and changing how it looks, with a lot of attacks having these weird startup properties and a decent amount of disjointed screen-filling attacks. So sometimes you look at the screen to try and figure out what's going on and you just sort of lose yourself. Speaking of those giant explosions on the screen, what about their kit? What can this character do? Well, Bedman's old unique mechanic was an 8-way air dash and a move known as Deja Vu, in which they were able to replay their special moves after they used them. This caused a Shadow Clone Jutsu version of the bed to perform the attack away from them, while they were able to do other things. This led to a lot of really good Oki and mix-up situations for them. New Bedman has something similar. They maintain their 8-way air dash, albeit in a much slower version than their XR counterpart. I don't think you could box dash as the old Bedman, but I tried it with the new Bed, and there's seemingly a forced delay from when you activate the 8-way air dash to when you can actually input it. It feels really weird because you can activate the patented dash mode by either inputting a second jump or doing an air dash. And then once in dash mode, you can press any direction and the Bed will dash in that direction. It's kind of awkward feeling, but that's probably just because I'm not used to dealing with it. It can be used after a throw to get a manually timed safe jump or a fake safe jump into a throw, which I have hit several people with already. When people finally master this movement, I'm sure the Bedman will have a very slippery playstyle that could require some good reads to actually catch them, but while people are figuring out the character, it makes that movement feel pretty clunky. Not to mention that dash and normal walk speed is extremely slow, so you do kind of have to rely on the 8-way air dash to get any kind of movement out of them. But what about Deja Vu? Well, it's still here in a very altered form. Every special move that Bedman does puts them in an error state known as Error 6E. After a certain amount of time, the machine malfunctions and causes a follow-up effect depending on the special move used. It is very similar to old Deja Vu in conception, however the opponent cannot get rid of the follow-up by hitting a seal that it creates because there are no seals, and the follow-up will happen automatically after a set amount of time instead of just dissipating. They can automatically call the follow-up to happen by using 214P, or they can reset the timer by using 214K. We'll go over each follow-up with the moves that they represent. 236P is a dedicated projectile. Shooting out of their working hand, Bedman fires a very fast, slightly homing projectile towards the opponent. The follow-up for this attack is another projectile that also slightly homes in on the opponent. The follow-up has much less recovery, meaning that Bedman can go into another action very quickly. If you're trying to zone your opponent, this is generally another projectile. Now, listen, I'm not a zoner player, I don't know if you can tell, so I'm not exactly getting the best clips of this projectile in action. However, if you know what you're doing, then you're more than able to just sit at the other end of the screen and throw out projectiles and its follow-up to harass slower characters to the point where they can't advance towards you at all. I can't wait for somebody to figure out some crazy tech with this and make it so that I can never approach again. 236S is an advancing multi-hitting spin top strike. It's an extremely negative on block move, so it's best reserved for hit confirming into or Roman cancelling on block. The follow-up is really juicy though. Bedman sends out a line of explosions that advance forward. This can be used as an offensive tool in order to get an ambiguous high-low mix-up, or a way to push the opponent back and set up your zoning game with 236P. It also can cover your more unsafe normals on block if you time the explosion right. 236H is a big explosion that comes from Bedman's left hand. You can charge up the attack to come out later, which gives it more damage and more frame advantage. Every version of the attack is plus on block, with the tapped version being +4 and the fully charged version being a whopping +19 on block. Jesus Christ! This is another good tool to end combos with, as the knockdown puts them at a good distance for a mix-up or to back off and start your zoning pressure. The follow-up causes Bedman's head to pop off, which leaves the opponent in a guard crush state. It does have the shortest range of all Bedman's follow-ups, however it is undeniably the most useful one when pressuring your opponent up close, as you can get a ridiculous amount of frame advantage from the follow-up. An amazing tool that gives Bedman some close range pressure. Their supers are okay. 6246S is an install super which gives Bedman more damage, more defense, and improves all of their follow-ups to be stronger versions of themselves. Every follow-up now also automatically wall breaks when they connect, giving you an easy way to get positive bonus. 6246HS is a pretty standard reversal super. It's extremely negative on block, but it's a good wake-up tool if you want to get your opponent off you. Bedman's kit is strange, to say the very least. A lot of the attacks have a clear use, but in-game you can find yourself scrambling to find a good way to link them all together. Bedman really feels like the kind of character where you need to know exactly what it is that you want to do in a matchup, and be able to execute setups for your game plan ahead of time in order to get the most out of their tools. Meter obviously helps you a lot, as you can set things up easier. For example, your 236S follow-up can be pretty hard to land sometimes, but if you do a string ending in 236S, you can simply Roman cancel, and you'll have the follow-up ready to go whenever you need it, which can be very useful. So let's do everyone's favorite part of these videos. Welcome to What Does Gecko Squirrel Think? I think that Bedman is fine. They're not my kind of character, but, you know, they're alright. They feel like a character that needs a lot of setup in order to get any of their stronger tools to work correctly, and due to the lack of any fast buttons or meterless reversals, they tend to struggle a lot when you put them in defensive situations. I do think that in a bit, good Bedman players are going to be able to take openings and absolutely run with them with a lot of their good follow-ups and unique movement tools. However, before that, I feel like a lot of players are going to be left scrambling, figuring out what they need to do. I really think that this is the kind of character that will take several months for dedicated players to really figure out. They're not the kind of character that you can pick up and play like Sin was. They require dedication and time investment into their kit for anyone to really understand what to do. I'd say that they're similar to how Jacko was. For a while, they're going to be seen as pretty bad, but after 2, 3, maybe even 4 months, players are going to find ways to do a bunch of crazy shit with them, and then the dedicated players who can execute that most of the time will absolutely run house on you, but they're not going to be a very popular character. You're not going to see them as much as something like Ramlafol, Kai, Sol, those sort of standard characters, you know? Also, I really think that Arxis missed an opportunity to do actually something cool with Delilah. I know that Bedman isn't a Sten's character in Exard, but maybe just having something simple like Bedman can pick up Delilah, and because they're directly protecting her, they have more guts, but do less damage. Or they can drop her so that they can take more damage, but they deal more damage as well. You know, that sort of thing would be neat. I'm gonna be honest, I crave a dedicated Sten's character. Leo isn't enough. I need Lei Wulong and an anime fighter. They're not my kind of character, and that's fine. I guess I can't complain too much because Sim was pretty fun, even though I ended up dropping him because he wasn't very good, but I wanted the funny vampire, you know? I wanted Pirate Man. I wanted my loud as fuck cook wife to come back. Now, the observant among you may have noticed that this video came out way faster than the other DLC character videos that I have done in the past, despite Bedman being harder to understand than the other characters I've talked about, and this wasn't actually the original plan. Originally, I was going to basically torture myself for several days to try and figure out what made this character tick. However, after realizing that the servers are just not getting better and that somehow fucking Hacker Man is back, I decided to just do the one session and figure out my thoughts on the character. So, Bedman, they're gonna take a long time to figure out, but once they do get figured out, I'm not looking forward to fighting them. All the tools are there for a decent character, but we're just missing the recipe. I hope you enjoyed. I'm going to try and be playing Strive Indie Park now on Twitch. Go and follow my Twitch. I'm shooting for partner. We're probably going to end up on like Skullgirls or something though, because Hackerman is back. Hackerman is back. How the fuck did that happen? How is Hackerman back? I can't believe this. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next week. As always, a very special thanks to 64MHz, Almost Nap Time, Bantushitos, Brudikai, Cervantes de Leon, Daniel Wiederick, DragonProx, Games.png, I Am Naoto, Lady Dantalon, Melodically Me, Monax Enhoa, Ray W, Super, Falcon, Tom Tanks, and Zandatsu for being Tier 2 patron supporters.